Welcome back. And if you tuned in late, we are talking about a subject called human trafficking. And it's here big time, right here under our nose. And we live in a nice southern community with a church on every corner, and you think everybody is above board, and we find out it isn't that at all. And there's they're here on behalf of Switch, SWITCH. And Lindsay Blair is here. She's the program director, and Zana Green, who is the community engagement director. Now, you're going to open up a house, or what is this? Well, what's happening?
Yeah, we have a home that has been donated to us for a specific amount of time that we can use for this. And basically what we're looking for now is finances to run the home, because we're going to obviously need staffing and counselors and just things like food and all the things that are going to help us run this home. And so that's kind of what we're working at right now. There are over 200,000 victims of trafficking in the United States, but there's only less than 200 beds. So we have a great need for these victims.
Now this would be a place that you would take a young girl, a teenager, or even an older woman who has been forced. It's like forced prostitution.
It is.
That's
exactly
what
that.
it is.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
And our shelter would focus on adult women. It's going to meet not only a local need, because we've been in the community for almost 3 years now, working with this issue, and what we're predominantly finding is adult women who are caught up in this lifestyle. So, you know, there's certainly a need for minors, and our heart is for minors as well, but this shelter is going to be focused primarily on women 18 and up. A lot of shelters who do focus on adult women cut off at age 24, so we're going to be meeting a national need by having all ages 18 and up as well.
So your plans are in place to open this home?
Yes. We're hoping to open in 2016 is the goal.
Okay. And any one of these women, they have to report, first of all, they would have to report it to law enforcement that this has happened to them, wouldn't they?
Not necessarily, because Lindsay can explain more about with our outreach program.
And why wouldn't they report it? This is what I don't understand.
Oftentimes, just depending on her situation, there's been women who, they might have young children, and if they finally escape from their trafficker, a lot of this trafficking stuff is organized crime, and it can be gang related, it can be mafia related, it can go very high up, and it can be it can be very scary. And so, until very recently, if a woman is to report it, if she was trafficked in multiple counties or multiple states, she would have to tell her story over and over and over and over again to, you know, maybe 10 different reporters, 10 different lawyers. And then she has to go to court in maybe several different states and several different counties. And so sometimes, you know, there's a fear because this trafficker has threatened her for maybe years on, if you tell anybody, if you report me, if you write a statement on me, you know, I'm going to, you know, do the unimaginable to you or to your family or to those that love you or those that you love. So a lot of times it's based out of fear that they just want to escape and they just want a fresh start. They just want to start over, but they don't want to go through the trial, and they don't want to go through having that exposure and that, you know, re-exploitation of them by telling their story to a lot of people who may not see it as victimization. A lot of times, a lot of people, you know, see prostitution just strictly as a crime, and, well, you know, she shouldn't have been doing that. She should know better. Why doesn't she have a real job? You know, those kinds of questions. But, you know, sometimes the abuse goes way back to her childhood, and maybe this is the only life she's known. We do have one woman that we've worked with who she was first sold when she was 13 years old. And so she's been in this industry. She's now in her late 30s. So she's been in this industry for most of her life. She, you know, hasn't had an education. She hasn't had the upbringing that, you know, probably most of us have had, with parents who tell us to believe in our dreams and, you know, who challenge us and want us to make good grades and encourage us to, you know, follow whatever our heart, you know, leads us to in our careers. But she's had family members who have sold her over and over. And so, you know, it's just, that's the main thing that we want to focus on in our restoration home, is just kind of letting these women have a chance to heal, to deal with the sexual victimization piece, as well as, you know, any kind of drug addiction that they would have, and offer counseling services and just help them find who they are, because many of them don't know. All they know is what they've been forced to do, you know, for many, many years. So it's kind of a fresh start to kind of figure out who they are and just really find healing and complete restoration, and that can take time.
Now, does this go on in high school age?
Yep. Yeah,
Young
the average age of
women?
entry is 13. So, I mean, up from middle school and up, really. We can see it happening.
And it is not uncovered or reported at all in the school where the girl is a student?
The teachers don't realize. I mean, that's part of the manipulation with the trafficker, is that he puts fear in them for all the authority that's in their life. So let's say that it's law enforcement and they don't want them to call law enforcement. Well, they start telling them that law enforcement is part of the problem. We've even heard stories of a trafficker dressing up like a policeman to make her think that the policemen are threatening to her. So she was scared because the policeman came in and abused her children. So I mean, she doesn't trust law enforcement because in her mind, law enforcement's who abused them. Of course, that's not true. That's not what happened, but that's what she knows, and so she's terrified to talk to law enforcement. She thinks they're bad guys, She doesn't think she can trust them. Or maybe with teachers, he says, if you tell a teacher, then I might hurt your friend or yourself, or I'm going to beat you. So they're terrified. They're terrified to share anything or say anything in fear of their own safety or a family member or loved one's safety. So it's so much deeper than just going and telling someone.
So I can understand that these girls and young women are the most vulnerable in society. They're the ones they go after.
Yes.
They're not going to find somebody with a solid foundation and a home and all. They don't want that.
Yeah.
They can use these people because they are so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Now, what about this layer of human beings that, to me, I don't think you could even call them human. They are evil. Who are they?
That can be anybody. I mean, they can be, we've seen it.
I mean, are they part of the mafia?
Sometimes.
Or are they just average people living among us?
I mean, there was a church one time that had a pastor who was a trafficker. Then there might be a football coach who's a trafficker. Then there could be a dad who's trafficking his daughter. It could be someone who's a gang member. It could be anyone. No one is excluded. The case in Spartanburg, a couple of the traffickers were young. They were, almost teenager age. They were young, and they were trafficking other girls. So, I mean, it can be anyone.
Okay, this to me is just horrible. What's the answer? You're trying to help. Do you need volunteers? Switch. That's what you call yourselves.
Yes.
What do you need?
Really, the biggest need that we have right now is just monthly commitments. If it's $10, if it's $25, $100.
And you have a physical residence.
We do. Yes, and so that's really what we need to be able to function in that and do the things that we believe the Lord's calling us to do in this new season. We've had so many women lately reaching out to us that are in need. We need to be able to start our counseling services for them and things like that, and we can't do that unless we get more funds.
So if somebody out there is being manipulated, is being used, they can call that number on the screen.
Yes.
If somebody suspects that something like this is going on with a family member or a friend or a high school kid or whatever, that's the number to call, and you do not have to give personal information. You're protected. And these women and young girls, they don't go to law enforcement. They don't call and report what they're made to do.
And sometimes I saw, there's a statistic out there that says that a lot of times the average victim will come in contact with 8 people at some point while she's being trafficked, whether it's a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, a police officer, and they won't catch it and they won't realize that it's human trafficking, that they'll write it off as, oh, she's just promiscuous. Maybe she is a 17-year-old girl and has, various STDs. And so she goes to get a pelvic exam and they find that, and then they just write it off as, oh, she's just very promiscuous. So I think a big part of ending the problem and a big part of finding a solution is just educating the community on what trafficking looks like and what are some red flags to look for, especially those who work in the healthcare field or who work in schools.
Okay, we got 3 minutes left. What does it look like? And for people out there who need to know, what are the things they need to know?
You take that?
Yes, anything, if you work with young girls or if you work with a woman in any type of life change that you can see, any significant changes in mood, any significant changes in grades maybe. If she has a new boyfriend, all of a sudden she's getting very nice things. He's buying her pocketbooks and nice clothing, taking her out, lots of travel if she's going traveling a lot with her boyfriend. Any of these things can be red flags, and it's worth at least just taking the time to sit and ask more questions. Especially parents, like monitoring your child, especially on social media too. These traffickers will target young girls on social media if they're posting a status maybe about, they're upset with their mom or they're upset with, a family member or something. The traffickers prey on those weak moments and those insecurities. So oftentimes they're targeting them via social media, and you might not even see a physical person in their life.
And the law says what about traffickers? Do they ever catch any of them?
They do, and it's become more and more prevalent, and law enforcement is becoming more and more educated on the issue. So they are receiving more training, and I know South Carolina, the Upstate does have a human trafficking investigator solely dedicated to fighting this crime and putting these traffickers in jail. So we're very thankful for that and for the hard work that he's doing in the community as well. And
are these traffickers, how would you describe the trafficker?
There's no way to describe it, honestly. I think it really, like I said,
it can be anybody.
It can be anyone.
It can be somebody that sits in church on Sunday in a coat and a tie, and you think they're wonderful.
Exactly.
Yep. They're not necessarily tattooed, the stereotype thug or somebody like that. Like they can be very well groomed, well manicured, very successful individuals.
They can be business people who are successful,
and
Absolutely.
This is Absolutely.
Okay, so anybody who has any information, I'll keep that number here, but you're welcome to make a note of it. We need to back up these people on switch and try to help women, and especially these young girls who are taken in to this kind of thing, and it's horrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the law enforcement needs to be more and more informed, I'm sure, and you're trying to, okay. Yes. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And keep us informed, okay?
Thank you.
And wherever you are, we need to be mindful, don't we, of what's going on around us and try to be better citizens. Stay happy. We'll see you tomorrow.